I think the best way to start off is just how would you describe things with the UFC going into UFC 270?
I think I would describe it, on the fight side, obviously, the story behind Ciryl and Francis, hey, it's going to be a great fight. On the business side, naturally, there's some uncertainty, right? There's uncertainty from our side because although previously we've tried to get a deal done with UFC, we haven't been seeing eye to eye. But at the end of the day, it's Dana's decision, it's UFC's decision on whether or not they want to, come back to the table and have a conversation. But our focus right now is this fight, Francis, and then hopefully we'll be able to take care of the business after. But we're still, and I remain open to have a conversation. They know my number, but it has to just be from a standpoint of respect. I think there's a huge misconception of, us trying to, ask for something that isn't reasonable or going against the UFC grain. Like, no, we're not trying to take an adversarial position. You know what I mean? We're trying to take a position of, hey, this is your heavyweight champion. All he's asking for is his respect that he has earned. You know what I mean? Nothing more, nothing less.
You said you're not seeing eye to eye. You mentioned respect there. Of course, respect is going to be important, and you guys have made that clear. You want to feel respected by the promotion. What aren't you seeing eye to eye on, though? Like an actual contract. What is the issue that's preventing you guys from getting to a deal?
Well, I think, obviously a lot of people just go straight to the numbers of money, right? But from the representation side, right, it's more than just that goes into a contract. It has to be fair terms that, the client, Francis, would seem acceptable to re-sign, right? Francis has been on record saying his last contract, he wasn't happy with it, right? He wasn't happy with those terms and certain stipulations within those, right? The inactivity. There's a laundry list of things, that aren't just monetary value, that's important to Francis. Like, look, Francis is at I would say close to the prime of his career. He has a lot more fights in him. I say, 3 to 5 more years. So our next contract should, set him up where he's comfortable and not having to come back. A lot of fighters at the end of the day, want to look back in hindsight and say, oh, I want more money now. Well, a lot of fighters are stuck in a contract and have a lot more fights. You know what I mean? So I'd rather do things right the first instance and make sure everyone's happy, and that way we can go about business as a partnership. You know what I mean? I haven't done a new contract for Francis. He's still in his old contract from 2017.
You say that everyone's mind goes immediately to money. Of course it does. You're saying that's not the only issue. Is the money issue close, though? Like, are you guys close in terms of the financial terms of the agreement?
It was all but set prior to the announcement of the interim title, I would say. Mm-hmm. In fairness, right? They made that decision. But since, I think a lot needs to be ironed out, and we need to understand where each side is looking at it, right? Because we see it on one perspective of, hey, there's some damages that have been done to Francis, right? There's obviously a lot more at stake in the line, whether it's present day and or for his future. And let's not forget, right? Having worked at the UFC, there's a lot that goes into when you value the fighter, from my perspective, right? From a sponsorship level to a media rights value, right? Like, and that's what I'm here to do on behalf of Francis. It's not just number of fights and this is what you're going to get paid, right? They know UFC has a certain amount of value. That's why they're represented by right the agency that they're represented by, because every deal that they make has to make sense in totality. So every deal that we make for Francis has to make sense in totality. You know what I mean? So that's what goes into the equation from our side, from the team. It's not just, hey, number of fights, this is that, and that's it, and a pay-per-view buy. But from my standpoint and Francis, are we just supposed to just say, okay? Well, that's not fair. That's not reasonable. That's not, you know what I mean, in good faith. And that's all we want is in good faith. Hey, obviously Francis wants to box, right? That's been his dream. My job is to make sure that that is communicated to the UFC, and we can figure out as a group what that means and when that means. You know, that's fair. But to sit here and say, oh, the reason why we're at this point is because of representation is a false narrative, in my opinion. I think that, you know, right now we're at this point in time because they have been reluctant to amend any of their, you know what I mean, language or their terms to Francis's contract.
Mm-hmm. How are you going to feel on January 22nd?
I mean, of course, going into January 22nd, it's a lot at stake. You know, both for Francis from right, if he loses, he can be done and be a free agent. If he wins, we have the champ clause. You know, no one really wants to be at this point, but we knew way long before that it's a reality that could happen. So we're prepared for, you know what I mean, we hope to get a call from UFC. We're prepared for, you know, after the fight, we can have a conversation. Again, we're prepared. I'll say that.
Is there anything else that you want to say?
Yeah, I think, you know, my message to Dana would be, you know, we have respect for you, Dana. You know what I mean? We understand that you have a business to run. But don't try to smear and discredit me or our representation. And I forgive me, he didn't publicly say my name, so maybe he's just talking about the agency that I work for. That stuff, it shouldn't be about that public beef or whatever, this, you know, going back and forth. I'm ready to squash all that. Like, call it truce, Dana. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, we should be able to sit down and have a conversation about what Francis's future looks like. If they, you know, don't care whether Francis is there or not, well, that doesn't feel good. We care you know what I mean, whether Francis is with UFC or not. You know what I mean? So that's what I want to extend, is that olive branch to say, hey, we're ready and open to do business, right? But it's your business. It's the UFC. If you want us, call us. Because I think if we don't get, at least a conversation going, then where do we stand? How is Francis to take that? You know? But I will say that I'm proud of Francis for where he's at in his career, because he's earned it. I'm proud of Francis for, you know, believing in his team. I'm proud of Francis for, you know, despite all the noise, staying focused and staying driven and, you know, representing the belt the way that he has.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.